and the current absence of native migratory fish in the system. This conclusion was reached after spring of 2021, where no native migratory fish were found on either trip. The sampling in 2021 was conducted during the wettest time of the year, and that sampling also documented the disconnected habitat and determined that the habitat quality in Jump Creek was poor and insufficient to support native migratory fish for most of the year. These pictures illustrate some of the limited habitat quality in Jump Creek. The top picture shows that the creek is dry for the summer, and then the bottom picture shows how small the creek is in May, and that was taken during the time of year where there would be peak flows in the system. Because there were no native migratory fish in the system and no connection with the waterway that had native migratory fish, we found that there would be no benefit to native migratory fish if passage was provided at the locations of the exemption request. There's a collection of features on the landscape at the confluence of Jump Creek with the Sylvies River that has isolated Jump Creek. This area is right at that confluence that we were just looking at on the map. It's taken standing on that road and looking toward the Sylvies away from Jump Creek. The irrigation canal is in the foreground of the picture. And then the smaller pitch shows the exemption site. And in January, the Commission expressed concerns that the dam did not have an associated water right to store water. So they asked for more information on the water right. So this spring, the Water Resources Department did visit the dam and concluded that it was storing water without a permit to store water. And the owners must address that unpermitted storage. However, the water resource finding does not change the department's finding pertaining to the upstream structures proposed for fish passage exemptions. So regardless of the future condition at this dam, there would be no appreciable benefit to native migratory fish if passage was provided upstream. And this is due to the conditions of the confluence that I laid out in the last slide. Native migratory fish would still be unable to enter the system and would not have access to habitat in Jump Creek. Due to the absence of the native migratory fish in Jump Creek and the multiple downstream barriers to passage, ODFW staff and Fish Passage Task Force members recommended granting the exemptions as requested by Sylvies Valley Ranch. Due to the finding that passage at the structures would not provide an appreciable benefit to native migratory fish. Oregon revised statutes states that obstructions without fish passage are exempt from the requirements of providing fish passage if the commission finds that there are no appreciable benefits to providing passage. As noted at the bottom of the slide, really smallly, you may not be able to read it, exemptions are reviewed by the department every 7 years and can be revoked if the conditions change in the future so that providing passage at the structures would provide a benefit to native migratory fish. That is the end of my presentation. I welcome questions and have a draft motion.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. And we have a couple questions. So, Commissioner Labhart.
Okay, thank you, Chair Zarnowitz. So, when this came to us before, there was concerns expressed, and we took those concerns to heart and asked you to go back and revisit this to do due diligence, and you've done that. We've now received another letter from Water Watch. It said Water Watch appreciates the Commission's decision in January not to approve the requested fish passage and asks us to do due diligence, which you've done. And now they're saying they still would like us to do more due diligence and not approve this request. In my opinion, you have done the due diligence. It does meet as you say, the fish passage exemption request for 10 artificial structures on Jump Creek has no appreciable benefit to native migratory fish passage. So I'm going to support this. Thank you.
And we do have 3 people to talk on this, but go ahead, Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde. Oh, I'm going to wait. You're going to wait. Okay.
Yeah. Public comments.
That's okay. So we have online Elizabeth Howard, who's an attorney for the applicant. She's there. She's on.
She's on?
She's on.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, I apologize. It appears that my camera may not be working this morning. Okay, there we go. Good
We
morning.
can see.
Can you see me now? Great, thank you.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning, commissioners and director. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. We did submit a letter on behalf of Sylvia's Valley Ranch LLC, and I'm here this morning just to highlight a few of the notes from that letter. As you guys noted in some of your prior discussions, this fish passage exemption request is being brought before the commission pursuant to terms of a consent agreement that was entered into between Sylvia's Valley Ranch LLC. The ranch did submit this exemption request along with 3 others for 4 streams that were addressed in the consent order. Those exemption requests were originally submitted at the request, and as far as I can tell, based upon the record at that time, concurrence between the agencies that was the appropriate process for addressing fish passage, not only for Jump Creek, but also for Payne Creek, Flat Creek, and Jack Andy Creek. Again, those were submitted in 2018. And so this request, along with those other 3, have been before the state agency for that duration of time, quite a significant amount of time. It took a very long time before those 4 exemption requests were then heard by the Fish Passage Task Force. And after that first hearing on further discussion with the task force and staff, Sylvia's Valley Ranch determined to proceed to actually move forward with fish passage on 3 of those areas, leaving just Jump Creek as the sole stream that would move forward under the exemption process. We then returned to the Fish Passage Task Force, and then subsequently to that, after they recommended approval of that exemption, have been now before you, this being the second time. So I just share that with you just as far as context and perspective about how long this process has been underway. And I also want to highlight that at each time from 2018 until present, that staff has continually, staff have highlighted this morning. I also wanted to point out to you that there are a few other documents in the record that highlight the absence of red band trout and migratory fish going back to 2018, and then even previously to that 2001. So it's been well understood for a very long time. And I would just note that 2001 predates the installation of the environmental restoration weirs on Jump Creek, that this is not a fish habitat, that there are no red band trout present. So that's been a long-standing understanding by the agency that this is not a location where we do have migratory fish in this drainage. I just also want to highlight.
Excuse me, can you sum up, please?
Of course. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate you bringing to my attention. So the last thing I want to highlight is that I think our goals here are to do restoration from the beginning as recognized in the consent agreement. And again, as highlighted in some of the pictures provided to you, that it really is the goal for these restoration weirs. And that continues to be the goal. And I think we've provided evidence that is occurring. So whether we agree or disagree about the source of the current conditions, that is the purpose of these weirs is for restoration. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of Elizabeth? Okay, we'll go on to the next person, and Brian Posowitz.
Mr. Posowitz is not in the room.
Okay. And then David Moskowitz, the conservation angler. David, are you there?
Yes, Chair Starnes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Chair Starnes, members of the commission, Director Melcher, David Moskowitz with Conservation Angler. This issue, I think it points out, I think the department can clearly show that it's sort of meeting its obligations to identify whether there's an appreciable benefit to native migratory fish. But there's something about this particular exemption doesn't really, it will only go to serve continued degradation of connected streams. And so this comment perhaps is more general than just this Jump Creek exemption. But if the applicant's desire is restoration, then why are we not requiring a connectivity to be part of that? Getting permits for these structures to improve habitat, water flow, stream processes will not be complete unless it's really connected to the Sylvies River, and you have a road and an irrigation ditch that is being used to sort of say we don't have a connection here to this river where there are red band trout. And so it seems like we are missing, I think, the larger point here. If this is approved, you're creating an island. And we're talking about rivers, which are a sinuous connected ecosystem. And we have concerns about the results here, even though all the rules are being followed, all the dots are being dotted, all the T's are being crossed. And this particular applicant has talks about restoration being their primary goal. Something just doesn't work here if you're thinking about rebuilding and restoring riverine habitat for native migratory fish. And it is, our recommendation would be to not adopt this staff recommendation for this exemption at this time. And I'm sure my time's up. And thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions. We support Water Watch's detailed testimony, which is in the record. And I don't know if Brian Posowitz is going to testify, but the points he makes are really spot on. Thank you very much for consideration of our comments.
Thank you, David.
Vice Chair Zarnowitz, Mr. Posowitz is now in the room.
Oh, okay, great. So Brian Posowitz of, are you available? Yeah.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Hi, everybody. And apologies, I was in a meeting from 8 to 9:30 and I just joined and I didn't expect to get to this item so fast, so didn't hear the presentations. Brian Posowitz, Water Watch of Oregon. We've been involved in sort of reviewing and commenting on the Jump Creek fish passage exemptions from the time they went to the Fish Passage Task Force. So I didn't want to let this come back to the commission without some further comments from us. We did submit some written comments, although I submitted them, I think, on Tuesday night. So I don't know if you've had a chance to see those yet. Just wanted to say a couple of quick things. First of all, I really appreciate the thoughtful deliberations back in January and the desire to get more information on the situation out there before approving the exemptions. Also appreciate the additional work by the department to gather more information and to submit the follow-up report. I definitely see the case for the exemptions given that there is this further downstream barrier, even if the downstream impoundment is removed. I really just wanted to flag that it's a bit of a fluid situation out there from a regulatory perspective, in that Sylvia's Valley Ranch has been sent a notice of violation as to that downstream reservoir. And in attached to my written comments are the notice of violation. There's also an email sort of raising a question about whether Sylvia's is going to voluntarily remove that downstream reservoir. And there's also some pictures in there where I tried to highlight that it's a fairly big reservoir. It seems like there's a significant amount of water in this stream system. And so the only thing I wanted to sort of raise is, does it make sense to wait till that regulatory situation is resolved before you make a decision on these exemptions? And then I also wanted to just highlight, I think what Dave Moskowitz was saying too, which is when you look at these exemption requests, I think it's important to sort of think about what they incentivize and don't incentivize. I think the intent of the fish passage laws is in part to start restoring streams that historically had fish and have lost those fish. And the concern about an exemption, I think, is that because it can be revoked if the situation changes. And I think you have to sort of wonder, does that incentivize or disincentivize whatever possibility there might be to reconnect this stream to the Sylvia's River and bring native migratory fish back to it. So with that, I'll conclude, and thanks for considering my comments.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any questions for any of the speakers? Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde.
This is actually a question for Sean. Is that
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Just to go over one more time, if we move forward with this exemption, this could be revisited in the future, right?
Chair Zanowitz, Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde, that's correct. Yeah, it is reviewed at a minimum every 7 years, but also if conditions change, and as Mr. Posowitz alluded to, if the dam was removed and conditions on the ground changed, the department and the commission could at any time revoke that exemption.
Okay, and I want to thank staff for giving us more time on this and helping us better understand some of the circumstances around this particular issue. And I especially want to thank you for the very clear mapping that kind of shows the issue in front of us. That's really, I should not be looking at Sean, right? I should be looking, right? Give the credit where it goes. So anyway, I understand all of the trepidation around this, but I will be supporting this today, the staff recommendation.
Any other comments, questions? Commissioner King. Chief.
Thank you, Chair Zarnowitz. And thank you guys for your report, because I remember this clearly in January and how very confused I was. I think literally I just needed more information, and that's what you've done. You could not have worked harder or made a better report. I also understand everybody else's objections is sort of, as far as I'm understanding, maybe you can give me more of a timeline. The property owner inherited, when they bought it, there was already the obstruction, meaning there was already the irrigation ditch, there was already all of the road there and things like that. And then they've, on their own, tried to create all these things, but didn't get permits for them. Is that what I'm understanding?
Sure. Chair Zonowitz, Commissioner King, that's my understanding too. That when they acquired the property, it had the water, but the dam was there, the road was there, the irrigation canals were there, and then they did build the structures. But the condition in Jump Creek was as it is at this time.
Right, it was already there, right. And so you're right, it's a circular argument. I mean, it was already blocked off, so no, there's not ever going to be fish in it because it was done before you started. So I mean, you just kind of you just spin. But one thing that I do find very alarming is they've clearly stepped out and done some other things like this illegal reservoir, and they've got a dam there that I guess, that's a different, it's kind of all of these varying, what we've learned about in our tour yesterday, all these varying permits and all these different agencies. That's a whole different problem. But is there anything to address this, or is this something that can be a trigger? Like as of in about 15 days, they're supposed to have this thing gone. And even if we grant the exemption, when they do hopefully comply with removing this dam and this reservoir, then we would instantly revisit all of this? Because could that change things? I'm not quite clear on that one.
Yeah, I can take that too. That is a good question, and I think that it would be one of those things that we would, when we do the exemption reviews or prior to that, if there is a connection and something changes on the landscape, it would be something that we would revisit.
And we have no way of knowing when or if they're going to comply with this. I mean, they're supposed to comply as of November 1st. So literally you could revisit this in 15 days. I mean, is that what this is saying?
Did you want to?
I think if I could, Chair Zarnowitz, and my understanding is that that dam and reservoir is long-standing. It's not something that's new. So it's been there, not prior to the current owner. I could be wrong about that. But in your questioning, if that dam were removed 15 days from now, it doesn't change the overall situation. There's still no connectivity. Okay. That's just one of many potential fish passage constraints in the system. So, okay. So no, I don't. If we would be, and Catherine, please correct me. Even though I'm the director, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But we would not be here today if we thought 15 days from now we might be coming back to you to rescind the exemption.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So there are other violations that aren't in our purview, but they're still not going to affect what we're deliberating today, is basically what you're saying. Thank you.
Commissioner Spelbrink.
Thank you, Chair Zarnowitz. I just was going to ask about the Fish Passage Task Force, the makeup of that. Now, I'm on that page here where it talks about it. Now, those are they from, is that statewide task force, or are some of those from the local community also, or?
Yeah, Chair Zarnowitz, Commissioner. Yes, the task force is made up of members that represent certain user groups, and we attempt to get a geographic representation for that group as well.
Right. Anyway, and they voted, I just see they voted 9-0 to approve it. So, I mean, to me, they know a lot more about this than we do even. So, I mean, that makes me want to support the exemption.
Before motion, I want to chime in just a little bit.
There's another question.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Hidden by the giant water bottle.
Yeah. That's down. Yeah, so I'm doing that thing where I'm like writing it in as simple as terms as possible for myself. And so I'm going to run that narrative kind of by you. And then I do have one question. So what I've written down is the stream is too degraded. It's in bad shape. It has been in bad shape for a while. Can it be restored? Is it worth it? This whole situation with the other legal things that are going on gives us a bad taste in our mouths because we are justice-oriented people, and but it's not our problem to solve. What message does this send largely to other folks so that we don't get to this point again with another degraded stream that we have to, decide whether or not we're going to approve these whatevers. And then ultimately, is this the hill we want to die on? Which is the question I ask myself like every single day. But my question is around, so that's kind of, that's the like very basic narrative that's going through my head, compiling like all of these conversations that I'm hearing. My question is around incentive. Like, what is their incentive for restoration, for connectivity? Is it we're good people who want to do this thing, or is there a broader incentive to, someday reestablish this creek?
Chair Zanowitz, Commissioner Cleo, I think when we work across the state with landowners, there's internal motivation from some landowners to do restoration because of their own kind of values. But there's also landowners that we work with in high priority areas where we bring resources to the table to help them in ways that are not going to hinder their operations. So there's a whole spectrum out there, and we use a variety of approaches to encourage voluntary restoration on the landscape. But we also, consistent with our climate policy, we prioritize those into areas where we're going to see a lot of ecological uplift that's going to really benefit fish. And just to be frank, this is not an area that's a high priority for the department because of the circumstances on the ground.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I go along with Commissioner King and that and others that this is not necessarily the best situation to be in. We really don't like to have to say the stream is trashed and therefore we can't ever restore it, given that there are red band trout in the Silvies. But it's obvious that it would take maybe a major change of the climate to get this working for fish again. And that may happen, but probably not in the near future. And that we have an exemption that we can re-examine. That's also helpful. So I'm in favor of going ahead. I think that this has probably taken enough of everybody's time that we need to just resolve it. And there's already orders from DSL that need to be completed. So is there a motion?
I move to approve the fish passage exemption request for 10 artificial structures on Jump Creek because the commission finds that there would be no appreciable benefit to native migratory fish if passage were provided at these structures.
I second it.
That was King, second.
Hatfield Hyde?
Yes.
Labhart?
Yes.
Spellbrink?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Khalil?
Yes.
Zarnowitz?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the detail also.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great report.
Yeah.
Really. We asked for more and you gave us more. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to Exhibit D.
I think we're taking a break so that people can.
Oh, is
check
it
out of the
10?
hotel.
Yep.
Did you check?
Almost 10.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we can take a 10-minute break. Be back at, yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, while we do
December's gonna
that,
be
commissioners, if is Mike still on?
Yeah.
Well, if I might, I want to thank Catherine for her work on this. She's had the albatross hanging around her neck for the last year or more, actually. So appreciate that. And for those of you who went to Morgan Creek Hatchery, Catherine, of course, started there as a volunteer when she was in high school.
No, she was
North
7,
Bend,
right,
Oregon.
Catherine?
So,
Weren't you 7 when you first went?
oh, grade school, not high school, but yeah.
Yeah, we heard all about it from Tom. It was a great story.
All right. Take a break.
Okay, yeah, break, 10-minute break. So be back at 10:03.
That's a future Kathy problem though, so.
And the microphones are hot.
They're hot, okay.
All right.
Get everybody seated.
Hey, good morning, Chair Zarnowitz, Commissioners, Director Melcher. For the record, my name is Ken Loffink. I'm the Administrator for the Administrative Services Division at ODFW, and I work out of Headquarters Office in Salem. With me today is Sergeant Van Meter with the Oregon State Police, but I'll let her introduce herself for the record.
Sergeant Heather Van Meter. I'm in charge of our Marine Fisheries team, and I'm stationed out of the Newport office.
Today, we're going to be asking the Commission revoke the commercial fishing licenses held by Mr. Richard Shore. Sergeant Van Meter is here to answer any questions that there may come up about the law enforcement aspects of the case. But let's get into it. So on the screen here, we have the rules and statutes summarized. These are summarized. It's not verbatim. The actual statutes are in your commission packets. But in short, the commission is granted authority to revoke a commercial license and suspend or withhold the issuing commercial licenses for up to a year when a person is convicted of any commercial fishing law, any commercial fishing law. Furthermore, OAR 635-006-0235, in accordance with that statute, states that upon the third conviction within a 3-year period of any commercial fishing law, the commission shall initiate contested case proceedings to revoke commercial fishing licenses and to refuse issuance of those licenses for a year. So let's get into findings of fact in regards to this case. So we have Mr. Richard Shore, who holds a resident commercial fishing license and a resident limited fish seller's license. Mr. Shore also holds a limited entry commercial Dungeness crab permit. That permit is not covered by the statute that I just referenced. These two are. Since 2016, Mr. Shore has been convicted 6 times of violations of the commercial fishing laws, including 3 times within a 3-year period, really a 2-year period between 2019 and 2020. Based on that information, ODFW initiated contested case proceedings by issuing Mr. Shore a notice of intent to revoke his commercial licenses, and we issued that notice of intent on June 30th, 2022. Within that notice of intent, there's an opportunity for Mr. Shore to request a contested case hearing through the Oregon Office of Administrative Hearings, basically to go in front of an administrative law judge to talk about the case. That request has to be made in writing to the department and had to be in writing within 21 days of receipt of the notice of intent. We did not receive written notification from Mr. Shore to request those hearings. So based on that, the case essentially reverts back to the commission by default to make a decision. So in conclusion, all criteria for revocation of the commercial licenses held by Mr. Shore have been met. In addition, I should say revocation and refusal to issue commercial fishing licenses for 1 year have been met. ODFW recommends that the commission, by issuance of a final order, revoke the 2022 resident commercial license and resident limited fish seller permit held by Mr. Shore for the remainder of 2022 and for a period of and to refuse issuance of commercial fishing licenses for a period of 1 year from the date of final order. And we have a draft motion up there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, does Sergeant Van Meter, you going to say anything or? Okay.
Just if there's questions.
Okay, and for questions, okay. All right.
I do just a quick question. Thank you for your presentation. My question is there's anything more that we could do to somebody like this? They clearly flout the law. Like, can you take it away for forever or do anything else or?
Yeah, Chair Zarnowitz, Commissioner King, great question. So there's a couple of things that we can do here. This is, I would say the first step is based on this statute, we have the ability to revoke for 1 year. There's an additional statute that I didn't list that states basically if this happens again, that we can come back. And since we've already initiated this first step, we can go for an additional 2 years. So if there continues to be, issues, there's a statute that allows us to come back to the commission and request an additional 2-year suspension. Other than that, it essentially is up to the courts if they want to take further action.
And just for the record, we had nobody sign up to testify. So Commissioner Labhart.
Okay, thanks. That was be my question before I weighed in. This one is so clear to me. It's just amazing. I mean, convicted 6 times for violations since 2016. It averages 1 a year, and including 3 times within a 3-year period, or actually 2-year period, as you said, Ken. So, we need to send a clear message. You can't violate Oregon commercial fishing laws. You can't continue to violate Oregon's commercial fishing laws and get away with that. So, strong supporter for this. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Me. I just wanted to comment that in the whole time I've been on the commission, I've never seen anything like this so far. So one of the things I'd like to say is that this is obviously somebody not following the rules, but I'd also like to do a little shout out at this moment to all the people that are following the rules and aren't reaching a point like this, because it's pretty neat that I haven't seen something like this until now on the commission. So are we ready for a motion?
Move that the commission revoke the 2022 resident individual commercial fishing license permit number 16307 and resident limited fish seller permit number 108G7 held by Richard Shore for the remainder of 2022 and refuse issuance of the commercial fishing licenses or permits for a period of 1 year from the date of issuance of the final order.
Second. Get rid of this guy.
Okay.
Spellbring,
Yes.
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 King,
Yes.
Khalil,
Yes.
Hatfield Hyde,
Yes.
Zarnowitz.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you
I
for
wish we
your
could
work.
take like, gee. An insult to say.
Okay, so we're ready for the next Oregon Conservation and Restoration Fund project approval.
So good morning, Chair Zonowitz, Commissioners, Director Melcher. For the record, I am Dr. Charlotte Regular Whitefield, and I am the OCRF coordinator. With me today is the Habitat Administrator, Sarah Reif, and we will be presenting a special project request put forward to the OCRF. Apologies as I learn my technology. Perfect. So since 2020, the OCRF has received hundreds of project proposals spanning across conservation and recreation. The OCRF has the authority to grant funds through 2 pathways, the competitive granting and directed awards. These pathways are outlined within the OCRF expenditure framework, which is a publicly available document on the ODFW website. Under both of these pathways, the OCRF Advisory Board will review projects, make recommendations to the ODFW Commission for their final approval of funds. With the recent investments by the Oregon Legislature and private donations, the OCRF is planning on granting approximately $5 million in the next 2 years. One project that has come forward to the OCRF recently for first a competitive grant and now a directed award, which is in front of you today for consideration, is the Trout Creek Ranch and Pueblo Mountains Conservation Areas. This project is being led by the Oregon Desert Land Trust, or ODLT, with a key project partner of the Nature Conservancy. This project is focused on 1,688 acres of land that was acquired by ODLT in 2021. These lands are collectively known as the Trout Creek Ranch and are depicted on this map in the solid orange. And just to orient you to this map, apologies for its size, in the center of the screen, there is a scattered dots that are kind of a pumpkin color for fall today. And that is what is referred to as the Trout Creek Ranch, the lands that were purchased as part of this project. The lands throughout it, as you kind of go out, that is the Pueblo in Trout Creek Mountains conservation areas. And that is where some of the grazing permits that are also part of this project have been acquired within. And then as you continue to go out, you can see varying shades of green on the landscape, and those designate different areas that have conservation interest. So this project has already opened 6,000 acres within the orange that you can see scattered around that map to public access immediately upon purchase. The public can gain access to these designated lands with written permission to ODLT. A permanent conservation easement has also been put in place across a large portion of this property to ensure long-term protection. This property covers 3 watersheds and includes a variety of habitats such as aspen woods, grasslands, creeks, wetlands, wetland meadows, sagebrush steppe, and while providing habitat connectivity among more than 1 million acres of existing conservation lands as seen on this map through the varying shades of green and also within the orange shaded areas. So this is a multi-year, multi-phase project focused around ODLT's goals of conservation and engagement. There is a great deal of community interest in this project, and ODLT has worked hard over the years to develop strong collaborations with many project partners. Trout Creek Ranch lands are home to a wide variety of plants and animals native to the Oregon Great Basin, including several listed within the Oregon Conservation Strategy, including cutthroat trout, mule deer, and several wetland bird species, such as the northern goshawk, black-throated gray warbler, and the pine secan. These lands are also priority areas for conservation for the sage grouse, as designated by state management plans. This project has already received a competitive grant from the OCRF in June of 2022 and is now seeking approval for a directed award. The OCRF Advisory Board recommended this directed award for funding in September of 2022. And due to the uniqueness of this project, is now coming forward to the ODFW Commission for final approval. As part of the 2021 land purchase, ODLT has been working with the BLM and 5 local ranching families on conservation-minded grazing leases, which maximize the property as working lands while protecting sensitive species and habitats, as well as removing wildlife fuels from the landscape. This project has collaboration with local biologists at ODFW, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, USDA, as well as a cooperative extension biologist at Oregon State University on ongoing research, including but not limited to sage grouse and also cutthroat trout surveys. The project lands are the traditional home of the Northern Paiute peoples. ODLT is actively consulting with several local tribal communities to understand their needs and goals related to restoration, land management, cultural preservation, and also access. ODLT board member, who is a Northern Paiute tribal member and serves on tribal council, is ODLT's lead in this outreach. In addition to building the partnerships, as you can see listed on the screen, ODLT has also done a great deal of outreach to the local government at the local governmental level. ODLT has hosted field tours with other partners, including but not limited to Harney County Commissioners, Harney County Soil and Water Conservation District members, Harney County, and the Harney County Watershed Council. Outreach and partnership building has also been conducted with several hunting and fishing organizations throughout the state to explore how to increase recreational access to these lands while exploring opportunities to enhance volunteer opportunities to expedite a restoration on these lands. So here's to describe a little bit more about the competitive grant. So in February of 2022, ODLT submitted a competitive grant proposal to the OCRF, and this project was focused on capacity building and preparing the lands for future restoration efforts. As part of this competitive project proposal, the funds for staffing of a full-time live-in local property management is a key step forward for this project, as this person would lead many of the Trout Creek Ranch collaborations with partners, and conservation efforts, including planning and implementation of an extensive 5-year conservation plan for the property. This 5-year conservation plan is still under development, but will include 8 main chapters. I will list these chapters with a very brief overview, just so that you get a taste of kind of the extensiveness of what they're planning for this project and the property. So first, the operations chapter will include facilities, sustainability, weed control, and wildlife response actions. The public access chapter will include maps of where the public access the land and what types of recreation, including hunting, fishing, and non-motorized vehicles could happen across the landscape. The restoration priorities chapter will include vegetation management, invasive species controls, as well as management strategies for derelict human structure removal, including old buildings and fencing. The stewardship and working lands chapter will include collaborative grazing models and best management practices for farming on the land. The restoration chapter will include specific actions for various parcels of the land and strategies for maintaining connectivity across the different parcels of land. As you saw on the map, this property has many different pieces, and it's going to be important to continue wildlife connectivity among them. The cultural resource chapter, including protection of and access to cultural resources. The climate adaptation chapter, including exploring mitigation and resiliency of how drought will impact the lands, habitats, and neighboring farms. And lastly, the monitoring chapter, and this will include support of long-term data sets and research of the land and the species on it, including sage-grouse counts. Draft versions of these chapters are currently being reviewed by ODFW and project collaborators, and several of these chapters summaries are available publicly on ODLT websites currently. So this competitive grant was highly rated by the OCRF Advisory Board back in February and was ranked 2nd out of 59 applications that they received at that time. This high rating was due to the project's inclusivity of key conservation and recreation aspects pivotal to the OCRF, as well as its inclusion of equity of outdoor access through its various partnerships as described on the previous slide. The final chapters of this 5-year conservation plan will be completed in December 31st of 2023. And this is in part because of the competitive grant that supported ODLT's ability to hire a local property manager to complete this work. And this competitive grant did come before the ODFW Commission in June of 2022. So on to the directed grant that is being considered by you today. So the Trout Creek Ranch project still has a lot of work to go towards meeting their 3 overarching goals and has continued to garner community support through extensive donations. Currently, ODLT has received another $550,000 of fundraising through the Nature Conservancy and other private foundation donations. Working alongside the OCRF Chair, Carl Wenner, and ODFW staff, ODLT has put forward a directed award project request to the OCRF Advisory Board for their consideration. In this project, ODLT requests to have a large restricted donation matched with a 30% directed grant to the OCRF. This pathway for granting follows the public-private partnership model that was intended for the OCRF when the Oregon legislature created it in 2019 and is clearly outlined in the OCRF expenditure framework. And this process has been done 8 other times in the past 2 years by the OCRF. The special project request is now coming before the Commission, as I mentioned, due to its large size and the unique nature of this project. So once again, the Trout Creek Ranch lands were purchased in July of 2021 through a loan, and these lands total value of $13,610,290. This directed award, if approved by the Commission today, will pay $715,000 of the remaining land principal at which is approximately at $1,307,470,000. This funding would help to retire the loan debt early and expedite ODLT's restoration efforts on the land. The breakdown of requested funds would be $550,000 in private restricted donations matched with $165,000 from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund. This directed award received unanimous consent by the OCRF Special Projects Subcommittee and the OCRF Advisory Board. ODLT and the larger Trout Creek Ranch project continues to build strong relationships with their local communities by enhancing conservation and engagement in the area. ODLT has worked in rural communities with limited tax bases over the years and plans to continue to support their community by paying local property taxes on all of its properties, including the Trout Creek Ranch. So by discharging this loan earlier through the approval of funding by this directed award, it would allow ODLT to implement habitat restoration actions with their existing funds sooner than originally called for in their 5-year conservation plan. ODLT is already coordinating with ODFW staff in its development of these plans, and the grant management for this funding request, if awarded, would speak to the continued collaborations to ensure conservation benefits for Oregon's wildlife and fish. Per the Oregon Conservation Strategy, focusing investments in prioritized areas or conservation opportunity areas can increase the likelihood of long-term success, maximize effectiveness of larger landscapes, improve funding efficiency, and promote cooperative effects across ownership boundaries. And this is exactly what the Trout Creek Ranch project aims to accomplish on its lands that span across 2 conservation opportunity areas. These lands benefit economies, communities, and ecological health throughout the region and are critical to wildlife connectivity, rangeland health, cultural and historical preservation, public access, and climate resilience. So it's and with that, staff has put up a draft motion for your consideration. And just as a reminder, the breakdown of requested funds would be $550,000 in private restricted donations, which would be donated to the department directly, which would then be matched with $165,000 from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund. And with that, thank you for your time, and we will be happy to take any questions.
Commissioners have any questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner King?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, Chair's onwards. My question is, I read through all of the paperwork you sent us. One of the things I did note is, at least maybe as I read it, very little public access. Like, for example, it expressly mentioned that there will be no hunting access on the properties, et cetera. Could you explain some of that, or did I get it wrong?
So Vice Chair Zanowitz, Commissioner King, I'll be happy to start that question, and maybe Sarah can add on to that as needed. So the property is recently acquired and there is public access to it. So 6,000 acres have been open to public access currently. Public access is with written from ODLT, and basically what that means is that they just ask to be informed of when someone's accessing the lands. So there are specific sections of properties have a very easy website to navigate and with maps and ability to access them. And to date, the property has not denied access to anybody within areas that they've already opened.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde.
Okay, well, I support this project, and I have been following ODLT and TNC's efforts to acquire this property for a couple of years now. And what I guess I want to highlight a couple of things that are important. This again happens to be one of those places out in that big desert that actually matters to some of us. And I want to compliment Oregon Desert Land Trust on their engagement with other ranches in the area, and even flexibility to do grazing on some of those. This is really, really a long ways out there. And Commissioner King would know that. We toured the Steens after the Burns meeting. And so if we had kept driving farther, we would have eventually gotten to Trout Creek. So it's interesting to me because for another reason, I happened to get the Oregon Desert Land Trust monthly email, and they're focusing on some things that are important to people that are in these really deep desert landscapes, like the importance of the rural fire protection districts. So it was fascinating for me that in their email that goes out to a very different audience than ranchers in Southeast Oregon would be reaching on their email list, they talked about the importance of these rural fire protection districts, which are volunteer, which keep this big sagebrush country that's important to so many different species healthy and safe. So that's interesting to me. So I want to say that I really appreciate this and I support this. And I also have one little bit of lobbying. No, it's not lobbying. We can't lobby. Advice.
Comments.
Not in our jurisdiction again, but there, and this I'll fire straight at Commissioner Laphart because he's part of the OWEB board. He keeps being our conduit to OWEB. But neither the sage grouse FIP or the High Desert Partnership were funded by OWEB. So the sage grouse FIP would be affecting 1 million acres, an additional 1 million acres of land in this big desert country of landowners that are ready to do conservation projects. So I'm excited here that we're doing this for this particular ranch, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we could be impacting a lot more land in this country and that a lot of people want to be doing good conservation on their lands. And let's not forget that as we look at projects like this. So there you have my whole statement, and it's 10:36.
Just a comment too. I'd also like to thank the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund Advisory Committee members for doing due diligence to this project. They looked it over in detail, and it was a unanimous recommendation to this commission to fund this project. And while they have more money than they've ever had in the past, they don't have a lot. And so for them to make this major commitment says a lot about their importance and recommendation to make sure that this project moves forward. So kudos to the advisory committee. Thank you.
And I will say something similar in that to me, when I first read that this was the Trout Creek Ranch that got purchased by the High Desert Group, I was just astounded that could happen. And I thought that was great because that's a very important area, as you showed there with all the conservation areas. And that they're doing very integrated management that can probably help also show others in the area or elsewhere, Nevada, other places nearby, how things can be done to manage the habitats as well as have agriculture on the land, grazing and that sort of thing. And I can't remember seeing where all the packs of wolves were, that map that we got last time. I'm just wondering, is there a pack of wolves in this area? No. I didn't think so. Yeah, no. It wasn't forested enough, probably.
Yes, Vice Chair Zarnowitz. If we did have that wolf map, it would show you, and this is a question I had for our watershed manager in the Malheur. Mm-hmm. There's almost this like bright line where the distribution of wolves just stops for Southeast Oregon, and it has to do with habitat and their prey choices, and they just are not selecting for this high desert landscape.
Yeah, but this is great, and I really support it, and hope that it not necessarily purchases expand, but that, as you said, Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde, that the ideas that this will be showing to nearby landowners and how things can be done and still have their agriculture. With that, go ahead, Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde. Did you want?
I would love to make a motion if we're done. And I also would like to say that it's nice to think that the Oregon Desert Land Trust will teach local agriculture what it needs to do out there. But what I like about what the Oregon Desert Land Trust is doing is they are also asking communities that have been out there doing habitat restoration work, how have you done it out here too? And that is one of the ways we can approach communities, right? Because some people have been out there a long time. Okay. So I move that the commission approve the expenditure of up to $715,000 on the Trout Creek Ranch special project for the Oregon Desert Land Trust as recommended by the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund.
Question, do we have to say contingent upon the receipt of the restriction?
Oh, geez. Help me out, my friends.
Read it again.
It's just a little different.
It's different.
They are different. Yes.
Should I start over? I move to approve expenditure from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund of up to $715,000 for the project Trout Creek Ranch and Pueblo Mountain Conservation Area, contingent upon the receipt of restricted donations of $550,000. Thank you.
No problem. We got you.
I'll second.
Commissioner King, second.
Labhart,
Yes.
Spellbrink,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Khalil. Yes. Hatfield-Hyde.
Yes.
Zarnowitz.
Yes.
Thank you
very
ladies.
Thank you.
So, do we have any other things we want to say?
I quickly before we break.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Co-Chair, Vice Chair.
You could have a little fun with Chair Wall. You could say when it was under Chair Zarnowitz, we ended up at 11:15 to finish our meeting. But rub it in.
The director has something to say.
I do, but Mr. King also has.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Chair Zarnowitz, wonderful job. Thank you. Chair Wald has a hard act to follow. I just wanted to let you guys know in this avalanche of paperwork we all get, I did include, and here it is, an urban ecology, the latest graphic that I've made. I gave to the commission, to the director, to all of the department heads and anyone else. I've still got a few copies. And the reason I did that and the reason I've done this creation is because December, we're going to Portland. We're going to bridge that rural-urban divide. And one of the things that we will be talking about with the Oregon Wildlife Coalition, they are having a meet and greet that the entire focus of the meet and greet is going to be discussion of urban ecology. So I often get blank looks when I'm here in ODFW. I get that what is urban ecology question. Hopefully this helps explain it. And then we can move forward and into a new frontier for ODFW because we're going to a place where they do not know what our initials even mean. So thank you.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner, or excuse
Thank
me,
you.
Director.
Yeah, I did want to say, I think I recall a commission meeting in Prineville where we got done. This could be the record shortest. I'm not sure if it was close. Prineville, we'll have to look that up.
Close to that.
But I did want to say that while this meeting has been very manageable and appreciated, I'm sure, by all, December may not be so manageable.
Yes.
And it will be a lengthy agenda. I plan to work with the chair on perhaps shortening the director's report to only the things that are absolutely required, expenditures and temporary rule ratification. Just we keep it within 8-hour period. So
It's going to be a beast.
more to come on that, but everybody have safe travels home. Michelle, we do have lunch here. I don't know that it's ready now, but you all are welcome to.
We do have lunch and we were able to move it up to 11:30. So it'll be ready. And we also have some to-go boxes if folks want to just grab food and go. Whatever's left, we can take over to the Charleston office and offer to our staff there.
Question for you, do you have our thingies to sign? Don't we sign?
I'm going to apologize that those are sitting on my desk in Salem. And so I'm going to mail them out to you with return address envelopes next week so that you can get them back to me.
Thank you.
And before we adjourn, I have to congratulate the department staff on their presentations because they were so well explained, so efficient. Not that they aren't always that way, but that helped us move along for sure. Not all our fault. Yeah, thanks. So with that, we are adjourned.
Okay. I can go take some break.
And we also have some to-go boxes if folks want to just grab food and go. Whatever's left, we can take over to the Charleston office and offer to our staff there.
Question for you, do you have our thingies to sign? Don't we sign?
I'm going to apologize that those are sitting on my desk in Salem. And so I'm going to mail them out to you with return address envelopes next week so that you can get them back to me.
We are adjourned. Congratulate the